Before the first stone was laid for a city, before emperors ruled and dynasties rose and fell, a river was already moving, patient, unstoppable, eternal. From the frozen silence of the Tibetan Plateau to the restless blue of the East China Sea, the Yangtze River has flowed like a living breath through the heart of China. It is not merely water traveling downhill, it is time itself, carried forward in a continuous, unbroken motion. The Chinese call it Chang Jiang, the Long River. And long before it earned that name, it shaped the land, carved the valleys, and decided where life could flourish. Its currents carried silt and stories alike, feeding fields, sustaining villages, and binding distant regions into a shared destiny. Along its banks, humanity learned how to listen to nature's rhythms, how to plant, how to harvest, how to survive. The Yangtze has known gentleness and fury. It has flooded kingdoms into ruin and nourished new ones into existence. It has reflected the glow of oil lamps and the steel glare of modern skylines. Poets watched it flow and saw eternity. Generals crossed it and saw power. Engineers studied it and saw challenge. To follow the Yangtze is to follow the story of a civilization learning, again and again, how to live beside something greater than itself. This river does not simply pass through China. It lives within it, breathing with its seasons, shaping its people, and reminding the world that all civilizations, no matter how vast, ultimately rise from water. The journey of the Yangtze River begins far from the crowded cities and fertile plains for which it is best known. Its source lies high on the Tibetan Plateau, in the remote and windswept Tongula Mountains, more than 5,000 meters above sea level. Here, glaciers and snowfields melt under thin skies, forming narrow streams that mark the river's first fragile steps into existence. In its earliest stage, the Yangtze is wild and youthful. Known in this region as the Jinsha River, it cuts through deep gorges and rugged terrain, racing past sheer cliffs and unstable slopes. Earthquakes and landslides are common here, and the river's course is constantly shaped by the immense geological forces still at work beneath the surface of Asia. As it flows eastward, the river gradually descends from the highlands into wider valleys. The landscape softens, and the Yangtze begins to slow, widening into a powerful artery that gathers strength from countless tributaries. Rivers such as the Min, Jialing, Wu, and Han feed into it, expanding its reach and influence across central China. By the time the Yangtze reaches the Middle Plains, it has transformed completely. No longer a mountain torrent, it becomes a broad, steady river, winding past lakes such as Dongting and Poyang, which act as natural reservoirs during flood seasons. These regions form the agricultural heartland of China, where fertile soils deposited by centuries of flooding have supported dense populations. In its final stretch, the Yangtze flows eastward across the lowlands, eventually forming a vast delta near Shanghai, where fresh water meets the sea. Here, the river slows to a near calm, dispersing its sediments and nutrients into coastal waters before merging with the East China Sea. Spanning approximately 6,300 kilometers, the Yangtze is the longest river in Asia and the third longest in the world. Its basin covers nearly 1/5 of China's territory, linking distant regions into a single geographic and cultural system. From icy mountains to ocean tides, the Yangtze's geography tells a story of connection, one river, binding an entire civilization together. The Yangtze River is not only a product of water and gravity, but of deep time and immense geological power. Its existence is inseparable from the dramatic forces that shaped the Asian continent itself. Millions of years ago, the collision between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate began to push the Earth's crust upward, giving rise to the Himalayas and the vast Tibetan Plateau. This uplift altered the natural flow of rivers across Asia, redirecting waters and reshaping entire drainage systems. As mountains rose, erosion followed. Rain, ice, and gravity carved pathways through newly lifted rock, allowing streams to cut deeper and merge into larger channels. The Yangtze, over time, became the dominant eastward-flowing river, gradually capturing smaller river systems in a process known as river capture. What were once separate waterways were absorbed into a single expanding network. One of the most dramatic results of this long geological evolution is the formation of the three gorges, Kutang, Wu, and Xiling. Here, the river slices through solid limestone and sandstone, forming narrow corridors flanked by towering cliffs. These gorges are living evidence of the Yangtze's erosive power, carved slowly but relentlessly over millions of years. The Yangtze River system today is vast and complex. More than 700 tributaries feed into the main river, stretching across mountains, basins, and plains. These tributaries do more than supply water. They carry sediment, nutrients, and organic material that shape ecosystems far downstream. Sediment from the upper reaches once flowed freely toward the delta, replenishing floodplains and maintaining coastal wetlands. Geologically, the river remains active and unpredictable, particularly in its upper reaches. Seismic activity continues to trigger landslides that can temporarily dam the river, creating natural lakes that may later burst and cause sudden floods. In this sense, the Yangtze is not a finished feature, but an evolving system, still responding to the movements of the earth beneath it. The river's geological history explains its immense scale, its power, and its capacity to shape both land and life. The Yangtze is not simply flowing across China. It is carving it grain by grain, carrying the legacy of ancient tectonic upheavals toward the sea. The life of the Yangtze River is governed by the rhythm of the sky. Its flow rises and falls in response to the East Asian monsoon, a powerful climate system that brings dramatic seasonal changes across China. Each year, the river enters a familiar cycle: quiet in winter, swelling with force in summer, then slowly retreating once again. During the warmer months, moist air from the Pacific Ocean moves inland, releasing heavy rains across the Yangtze Basin. Tributaries fill rapidly, lakes expand, and the river's volume increases dramatically. This seasonal flooding has long been essential to life along the Yangtze. Floodwaters spread across plains, depositing nutrient-rich silt that renews agricultural soil and sustains wetlands. But the same floods that nourish the land can also devastate it. Throughout history, uncontrolled flooding has destroyed villages, submerged farmlands, and claimed countless lives. Ancient Chinese records describe floods as divine warnings or tests, capable of reshaping dynasties as surely as armies. Managing floodwaters became one of the earliest responsibilities of Chinese rulers, linking political legitimacy directly to environmental control. In winter, the monsoon retreats. Rainfall decreases, temperatures fall, and water levels drop. The river becomes calmer, exposing sandbars and riverbanks. This seasonal contrast allowed communities to adapt, planting and harvesting in harmony with the river's cycles. However, in the modern era, this balance has grown increasingly fragile. Climate change has intensified rainfall in some regions, while increasing drought risk in others. Floods now arrive with less predictability and greater intensity. Prolonged droughts in the upper basin can reduce downstream water flow, affecting agriculture, shipping, and hydropower production. Large-scale dams and reservoirs have altered the river's natural rhythm, reducing some flood risks while creating new challenges. Sediment is trapped, seasonal flows are smoothed, and ecosystems that evolved with natural flooding patterns struggle to adapt. The Yangtze's seasonal cycles are a reminder that rivers are not static. They breathe with the climate, responding to forces far beyond their banks. To live alongside the Yangtze has always required respect for its rhythms, and an understanding that water, when ignored or misunderstood, will always reclaim its space. The Yangtze River Basin is one of the most ecologically rich and diverse regions in Asia, shaped by its immense size and the wide range of climates it passes through. From the icy alpine meadows of the Tibetan Plateau to the humid wetlands of the eastern plains, the river supports a mosaic of ecosystems, each intricately connected to the others. In the upper reaches, thin air and harsh conditions give rise to resilient plant life. Alpine grasses, mosses, and hardy shrubs cling to rocky slopes, providing grazing grounds for yaks and wild ungulates. Forested valleys lower down shelter ancient species of fir, spruce, and rhododendron, forming biodiversity hotspots in otherwise extreme environments. As the river enters the middle basin, the landscape transforms into fertile plains and expansive wetlands. Lakes, such as Dongting and Poyang, serve as vital ecological buffers, absorbing floodwaters while providing breeding grounds for fish and migratory birds. These wetlands are among the most important stopover points in East Asia for species traveling along the East Asian-Australasian flyway. The Yangtze itself is home to hundreds of fish species, many of which are found nowhere else on Earth. Historically, its waters supported thriving fisheries that sustained millions of people. Among its most famous inhabitants was the Yangtze River dolphin, or baiji, once revered in folklore as a river spirit. Declared functionally extinct in the early 21st century, the baiji's disappearance stands as a solemn warning of how fragile even vast ecosystems can be. Another iconic species, the Yangtze finless porpoise, still survives, though its numbers remain critically low. Ancient fish, such as the Chinese sturgeon, sometimes called a living fossil, migrate between the sea and the river, relying on unobstructed channels to complete their life cycles. Plant life along the riverbanks plays a crucial role in maintaining ecological balance. Reeds, willows, and floodplain forests stabilize soil, filter pollutants, and provide shelter for countless insects, birds, and small mammals. When these plant communities are damaged, erosion accelerates and water quality declines. The Yangtze Basin functions as a living network. Water, nutrients, and life move freely through it when the system is healthy. When disrupted, the consequences ripple outward, affecting biodiversity, food security, and human livelihoods across vast regions. For thousands of years, the Yangtze River has been more than a natural feature. It has been a foundation of identity, belief, and prosperity. Flowing through the heart of China, it has shaped cultures as surely as it has shaped landscapes. Culturally, the Yangtze has long marked a division between northern and southern China. Differences in language, architecture, cuisine, and customs often trace their roots to the environments shaped by the river. In the humid south, rice became the staple crop, while waterways replaced roads as the primary means of travel and trade. Economically, the Yangtze has served as China's most important inland artery. Long before modern transportation, wooden junks carried grain, silk, tea, and porcelain along its currents. The river connected inland provinces with coastal markets, enabling the growth of some of China's greatest cities. Even today, the Yangtze remains one of the busiest inland waterways on Earth, supporting industry, shipping, and commerce on a massive scale. Spiritually, the river has inspired reverence and awe. In ancient belief systems, the Yangtze was often personified as a dragon, an embodiment of power, fertility, and protection. Rituals were performed to appease river spirits, particularly during flood seasons, reflecting humanity's desire to negotiate with forces beyond its control. The Yangtze also occupies a central place in Chinese literature and philosophy. Poets such as Li Bai and Du Fu used the river as a symbol of time, transience, and continuity. Watching its endless flow, they found metaphors for human life, brief and fleeting against the backdrop of eternity. Artists painted mist-covered mountains and winding waters, while scholars debated the river's meaning in the context of harmony between humanity and nature. The Taoist ideal of flowing with the natural order found its perfect expression in the Yangtze's steady, unresisting movement toward the sea. In every era, the Yangtze has provided sustenance, inspiration, and connection. It has carried goods and ideas, prayers, and poetry. To understand its cultural, economic and spiritual significance is to understand why this river is not merely part of China's history, but part of its soul. Across thousands of years, the Yangtze River has stood at the center of Chinese history, shaping the rise of kingdoms, the movement of people, and the evolution of one of the world's oldest continuous civilizations. While the Yellow River is often called the cradle of Chinese civilization, the Yangtze became its enduring backbone, sustaining growth, stability, and cultural exchange on an unparalleled scale. Early settlements along the Yangtze date back more than 7,000 years, with archaeological sites revealing advanced rice cultivation, pottery, and wooden architecture. These early river communities laid the foundation for southern Chinese culture, which would later merge with northern traditions to form a unified civilization. Throughout imperial history, control of the Yangtze meant control of power. The river served as both a natural barrier and a strategic highway. During periods of division, such as the Three Kingdoms era, the Yangtze became a defensive line separating rival states. Battles fought along its banks, most famously the Battle of Red Cliffs, demonstrated how mastery of the river could determine the fate of empires. In times of unity, the Yangtze functioned as an economic lifeline. The development of the Grand Canal, linking the Yangtze to the Yellow River, allowed grain from the fertile southern plains to reach northern capitals. This system sustained massive populations and helped stabilize dynastic rule for centuries. Major cities flourished along the river's course. Chongqing became a gateway to the western interior. Wuhan emerged as a commercial crossroads. Nanjing served as imperial capital, and Shanghai grew from a river town into a global metropolis. Each city reflects a different era of the Yangtze's influence. The river also shaped social life and cultural identity. Festivals, markets, and traditions evolved around its seasonal rhythms. Boats were homes, livelihoods, and symbols of freedom and uncertainty. For generations, the Yangtze was not something people crossed, it was something they lived upon. In moments of crisis, the river bore witness to suffering and resilience alike. Floods, wars, and revolutions unfolded along its waters, yet communities endured, adapting once more to the river's demands. Through every transformation, the Yangtze remained a silent observer and an active force in shaping China's historical path. In the modern era, the Yangtze River has become a focal point of China's rapid transformation. As the nation industrialized and urbanized, the river shifted from a natural lifeline to a strategic resource, harnessed for energy, transportation, and economic growth on an unprecedented scale. The most iconic symbol of this transformation is the Three Gorges Dam, the largest hydroelectric project in the world. Designed to generate clean energy, control flooding, and improve navigation, the dam represents a triumph of engineering ambition. Its turbines supply electricity to millions, and its reservoir has reshaped shipping routes deep into China's interior. Yet the benefits came at a cost. Entire towns and villages were submerged, forcing the relocation of millions of people. Ancient archaeological sites vanished beneath rising waters, taking irreplaceable history with them. Sediment that once flowed freely downstream is now trapped, altering riverbanks, deltas, and ecosystems far from the dam itself. Beyond Three Gorges, dozens of dams line the Yangtze and its tributaries, each changing the river's natural rhythm. Seasonal floods are reduced, but fish migration routes are blocked. Wetlands shrink, and species that evolved with natural flow cycles struggle to survive. Industrial development along the river has brought prosperity, but also pollution. Factories, shipping traffic, and expanding cities introduce chemical runoff, plastic waste, and noise into once quiet waters. While regulations have improved in recent years, the legacy of decades of unchecked growth remains visible. The Yangtze today reflects a central tension of the modern world: how to balance human progress with environmental responsibility. It stands as a reminder that rivers can be engineered, but never fully controlled. Every intervention reshapes the system in ways that echo far beyond their original intent. As China continues to redefine its relationship with the Yangtze, the river remains both a partner and a warning, offering immense power while demanding respect for the delicate balance that sustains life along its course. In the modern age, the Yangtze River faces challenges unlike any it has encountered before. Centuries of human adaptation have given way to decades of rapid industrialization, placing unprecedented strain on one of the world's great river systems. Pollution, habitat loss, overfishing, and climate change now converge, threatening the ecological balance that sustained life along the Yangtze for millennia. Industrial discharge and urban runoff have introduced heavy metals, chemicals, and microplastics into the river. Though water quality has improved in some regions due to stricter regulations, contamination remains a serious concern, particularly in densely populated and heavily industrialized zones. These pollutants accumulate in sediments and food chains, affecting both wildlife and human communities. Biodiversity loss has been especially severe. Overfishing and dam construction have disrupted spawning grounds and migration routes, pushing several species toward extinction. The disappearance of the Baiji dolphin stands as a powerful reminder of what is at stake when economic growth outpaces environmental protection. Climate change adds another layer of uncertainty. More intense rainfall events increase flood risks, while prolonged droughts threaten water availability. Glacial retreat in the upper reaches alters long-term flow patterns, making the river less predictable and more vulnerable to extremes. In response, China has launched large-scale conservation efforts aimed at restoring balance to the Yangtze Basin. Fishing bans along major stretches of the river have been introduced to allow fish populations to recover. Wetland restoration projects seek to rebuild natural flood buffers and revive critical habitats for birds and aquatic life. Environmental monitoring has expanded, with satellite tracking and data-driven water management guiding policy decisions. Public awareness campaigns emphasize that protecting the Yangtze is not only an ecological responsibility, but a cultural and national one. These efforts mark a shift in philosophy, from dominating nature to working alongside it. While challenges remain immense, the future of the Yangtze depends on recognizing that the river's health and human prosperity are inseparable. To protect the river is to protect the foundation of life it continues to support. The Yangtze River continues its journey, as it always has, flowing through mountains, cities, and centuries. Its waters carry the memory of ancient glaciers and imperial dreams, of farmers' prayers and engineers' ambitions. Each bend in the river holds a chapter of human history, written not in stone, but in motion. Despite dams and embankments, the Yangtze remains alive. It adapts, reshapes, and endures. It reminds us that progress does not erase the past, but builds upon it, sometimes wisely, sometimes at great cost. The river reflects humanity's greatest strengths and its deepest vulnerabilities. To stand beside the Yangtze today is to witness a conversation between nature and civilization, still unfolding. The choices made along its banks will determine whether future generations inherit a living river or a controlled channel stripped of its spirit. Yet there is hope in the river's resilience. For millions of years, it has survived shifting continents and changing climates. With care, respect, and understanding, it may continue to flow as a source of life, inspiration, and identity. The Yangtze is not finished telling its story. As long as its waters move toward the sea, it remains a reminder that civilizations, like rivers, are defined not by their power alone, but by how they choose to flow.